In this video, I am going to discuss about how to set up and configure Jupyter Notebook within your Python virtual environment. If you need some more clarity around what is Python virtual environment, how to set up and configure it, I have already created some videos around those concepts. So just go and watch, you'll find it useful. So now let's start installing and configuring Jupyter Notebook within Python virtual environment. For that, just open terminal, and before installing anything new, I will try to create one new virtual environment, and I will give name as Jupyter Lab, and I will give Python version as 3.8.1. So you can give whatever Python version you need based on your requirement. I'm just specifying Python version as 3.8.1 just to showcase how we need to specify any specific Python version while creating virtual environment. Just press enter. It will create ML Jupyter Notebook environment. Press Y. It will download and extract all the packages and will install it within your environment. It has been created. And now in order to use that environment, just activate it first. So for that I have just copied it and pasted it, activate it. And now you can see that it has been switched to ML Jupyter Lab environment. You can also check it from this, right? So asterisk in front of my environment name means that ML Jupyter Lab environment is active right now. Okay. And now we'll start installing Jupyter Notebook within our ML Jupyter Lab virtual environment. So we have two different ways of installing Jupyter Notebook within your environment. The first way of installing is to pip install Jupyter Lab, and the second is simply pip install Jupyter. So both provides notebook functionalities, but Jupyter Lab provides some additional features and functionalities to create and configure your Jupyter Notebook instance. I will show both of them, how to install it and how to use it within your environment. So first we'll start with Jupyter Lab. So for that I will be using pip install Jupyter Lab. Jupyter Lab. Press enter. It will take some time because it has lots of dependency on different packages. So you can see it from here. It has lots of dependencies. So now it has been installed successfully. And now we can access Jupyter Lab from our command prompt. But before accessing Jupyter Lab, you also need to create a concept called Python kernel. What is Python kernel? So Python kernel will provide you all the connectivity or all the requirements for Jupyter Lab. Because Jupyter Lab is based on front end. And in order to communicate front end with backend means wherever my Python is running, so that the code which we would be writing within Jupyter Notebook instance would be able to execute it. Because that's the way of managing your work within Jupyter Notebook instance. Because Jupyter Notebook instance itself will not run your command, it would run against your kernel. And for that we need to create kernel within your Jupyter Notebook instance. For that we have command called python -m ipy kernel import install user and we need to give name. This name is simply used by Jupyter. Jupyter. I mean, you can give any name. It's not that you need to specify Jupyter. Any name you can give, and then display name. Display name you can give Jupyter Lab Kernel. Okay, so this name would be visible in your Jupyter Notebook instance, right? Because this kernel will connect your front end to backend, and backend will confirm that this Jupyter Notebook kernel would be using my Python 3.8.1 version, which we had used while creating our ML Jupyter Lab environment, right? Press enter. It has been activated, installed successfully. The kernel spec Jupyter is in this repository. It has been stored, right? And now we will launch Jupyter Lab. Jupyter Lab. Jupyter space lab. Press enter. It will launch your Jupyter Notebook instance. So here it will ask for kernel, which kernel to use. So just check the drop down. We have Jupyter Lab kernel. So just click here because we had created this kernel. Select. Okay. And now the first thing what we'll check what Python version this kernel has. For that we have to install one package, platform import Python version, and then we will print Python version, which is correct, right? 3.8.1, which confirms that my notebook instance is able to communicate with backend running 3.8.1 Python version, right? So that confirms. The second thing we can check, just try to import some packages. It gives again model not found, so the which looks all right, because we haven't installed anything in that environment. And in order to install it, we need to run it in your Conda environment, right? For that we have option, like just click on the plus sign. It will show you this screen where you can find different kernels available within your environment, and all the terminals and all the activities which we can perform within our environment, right? So just click here, and now we need to activate our environment. So what is our environment? Let's check it from here. So Conda activate ML Jupyter Notebook, Jupyter Lab, ML Jupyter Lab activated. Now we can install it. Sorry, and tas. Okay. It will install pandas within your environment. It's successful, and now we'll try to run this command again. It's successful, right? So that's the way of using Jupyter Lab within your Python virtual environment, right? So that's the first way of accessing. And you can see that Jupyter Lab has lots of features in terms of managing different command prompt or just seeing different kernels. You can use different instance of notebook for different kernels, right? So in this environment we have multiple kernels available which have been created for different version of Python. So you can see that we have Jupyter Notebook kernel, we have ML competition kernel, we have Python 3 as a base kernel. So we have different kernels available, and for this demo we had used Jupyter Lab kernel, which we had created as a part of our environment creation, right? Now we will see what benefit Jupyter Lab provides in comparison to Jupyter Lab. So just check. We'll just try to launch Jupyter Lab in the same environment. We'll activate Conda env list honda activate ml Jupyter Lab. Press enter, and now we'll try to install Jupyter. Pip install Jupyter and enter. It's collecting Jupyter and it will install. It's done. And now we can fire just command Jupyter Notebook. Press enter. So it has different look and feel, but its functionality it provides is almost similar, right? So it's equivalent to what this is providing us, right? So we can open different kernels using different notebook using this option, right? So we can just click on Jupyter Lab kernel and we can open different notebook from here. So it also provides different same functionality from here. We can create new Jupyter Lab kernel. So click here. So we can open different notebook instance from here. If we need to create another one, Jupyter Lab like this way, right? And if we'll just import pandas, it will work, right? So it has similar sort of functionality, Jupyter Lab and Jupyter Notebook, but you can see that Jupyter Lab has lots of functionality and you can manage and configure everything from single web page, right? You don't need to go to different command prompt, right, for accessing different, for installing packages or for accessing any other interfaces. You can manage everything from here, right? But Jupyter Lab does not provide all those functionalities, right? It has only notebook instance available, and all the other aspects you need to manage it separately. So Jupyter Lab has option of running, checking what are the different notebook currently we are running, right? Which clusters. So right now we don't have any cluster, so it is blank. But here also we have similar set of functionality. You can check what are the kernels we are using, which cluster is active right now, right? So you can just browse it. You'll find Jupyter Lab more effective and efficient way of managing your exploratory or interactive analysis for any of the machine learning activities. So that's it from my side, guys. I hope you'll find it useful. Thanks for watching. See you next time.